Commissioner Becerra. Commissioner Contreras-Leo.
Here.
Commissioner Alderetti.
Here.
Vice Chair McLaughlin.
Here.
Chair Verino.
Here.
Commissioner Mendoza. Commissioner Nguyen. Chair, for the record, Commissioner Nguyen has reported that he will not be attending today's meeting, and
Patrice is right.
we have Commissioner Mendoza is just walking in, and Commissioner Becerra will be in attendance today. You have quorum.
Thank you. Will you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is the time for our public comments. Does a member of the public have any public comments on non-agenda items? If so, you may fill out a request to speak form with the secretary, and after introduction, have 3 minutes to speak unless an extension of time is granted by the chairperson. Okay. We're going to move on to the consent calendar. The first item of business is the consent calendar. Is there a member of the public that would like to comment on these items? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve items on the consent calendar?
Motion to approve.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Moving on. Motion passes by unanimous vote, and we're moving now to the business calendar. Please be advised that the action of the Planning Commission is final following consent of the City Council unless, if allowed by the Santa Ana Municipal Code, an appeal to the City Council is filed with the Clerk of the Council, and a copy is sent to the Planning Department within 10 days from the date of the Commission's action, or unless set for public hearing by the City Council. An appeal from a decision or requirement of the Planning Commission may be made by any interested party, individual, or group. This is the time to consider item number 1, which is the site plan review number 2017-02 to allow the construction of a mixed-use development located at 421 North Harbor Boulevard. Do any commissioners have anything they wish to disclose with regard to this item? Okay. Staff will now make a presentation.
Good evening, Chairperson, members of the Planning Commission. This project was continued from the last Planning Commission meeting from May 22nd. There were concerns raised regarding the architecture of this project as well as security measures, and the Planning Commission requested this project to be presented to the Design Review Subcommittee. Staff has completed those requests. This project was reviewed by the Design Review Subcommittee on May 30th, and the Design Review Subcommittee has unanimously recommended approval of the project. We also added a security condition. A security plan will be submitted and reviewed by the Planning Division for approval prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy. Staff would like to make a minor correction to the staff report attachment 7, which is the resolution condition. The last condition that requested a 24-hour security guard will be replaced with a security plan be approved by the Planning Division. I would like to go through the revised renderings of this project that was presented to the Design Review Subcommittee. This is a view from 5th and Harbor. This is another view from 5th and Figueroa. The rendering is also behind you on the podium. And this is the security plan that was presented to staff that includes all the security measures to make sure that there's the security of the entire project site. This concludes staff's presentation. I'm here to answer any questions that you have.
Oh, and did you, the last statement you said about the revision on they're changing from 24-hour security to the security plan?
Yes,
What
instead of
what attachment was that?
is the resolution.
Is it Exhibit A to the resolution?
Is Exhibit 7.
Let me see it.
Is condition number 6, 1-21, page.
Oh, I got it. Okay.
Yes.
So Exhibit A 1-21, number 6. Okay, thank you. Any questions of staff? Commissioner Becerra?
So, other than some of the treatment on the facade, I think my biggest concerns on the last time we saw this project was that you're at a pretty reasonably significant corner, and it looked like two buildings were just kind of accidentally bumping into each other. And from what I'm seeing on the plans versus what we had seen previously, it looks kind of like the same thing. I mean, it's the same treatment. There's a tree and some tables and chairs. Really nothing too much different there. So maybe I'm wrong. Is there something different that I missed?
Well, there different kind of materials that are they're kind of not exactly the same material in texture and color to show the contrast of like a corner treatment. So when we presented to the design review subcommittee, the subcommittee members were satisfied with the treatment.
Maybe my question's not clear. So I'm seeing physical form. Forget the facade. Forget whether it's made out of cork board or concrete or whatever. It looks like two buildings accidentally bumping into each other. It's more of a form issue, not necessarily the materials. The materials look great from the rendering here. They look fantastic. I'm just saying is that as they come together, it's really not that exciting compared to other projects that we've seen, and especially with this company who's done development in other parts of Southern California, kind of feel like we're getting the lower end of the spectrum when it comes to creativity in that space. It's a public space. I know one of my colleagues in our last hearing on this item had talked about security, and I understand that it was addressed as far as going into the site, but you know, at night, what is there other than just a physical person walking the site? Was there anything done as far as addressing that front area? People are going to be laying out there, hanging out, doing who knows what?
Well, the corner, both corners on 5th and Harbor, 5th and Figueroa, they're all being used as a interactive open space to the public. And that is the intention of the harbor specific plan, to create these public areas. So I understand your question. So yes, people are expected to be hanging out in those areas because the purpose is for that to be a publicly interactive open space.
Okay. That's
Commissioner Eldred?
Just on that point, do we have what the original rendering was versus, well, not rendering, but the plan? Because my memory is,
Failing.
yeah, that's the old rendering. I'm looking for
Those are the old
Exhibit
ones?
6. Yeah, I'm looking for the old.
previous ones.
Yeah.
The previous ones, I can go down to my PowerPoint.
Okay.
Yeah. This is the previous one that was presented to the commission on the May 22nd meeting.
So it looks like the bottom rendering is similar to Exhibit 5.
It's the
It
same
just
layout.
has more,
It's the same layout, just different
has more
materials.
greenery. That looks like Exhibit 5. And then Exhibit 12, 1.12, 1-12
is the top one.
The top is,
Is the top,
1-12 is the top one.
which is now open space and not retail.
Yeah, my question is a little different. It's about, so in the packet at 1-16, that would help me understand what's been changed, just looking down on the project.
The image on your right behind Planning Commissioner Mendoza, that is the corner of Harbor. That's the Harbor corner. And it corresponds to the image on your, on the top drawing, that's top elevation on the PowerPoint presentation. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ann. And the image behind Chair Verino, that corresponds to the image that we see on the lower left, which is the Fifth Street,
Fifth and Harbor.
the Fifth Street corner on the other side to the east, Cypress. Does that clarify? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yes, it does.
Commissioner McLaughlin, do you have a question?
No, I already,
That was your reading.
I'm out. Yeah.
Commissioner Becerra, did you have anything else? Any other questions of staff? Thanks, Ann. Would the applicant like to comment at this time on the item?
Thank you. Thank you for having me again. So I'd like to address Commissioner's comment. So this is this design iteration actually has been, like I said last time, 4 months of iteration with the urban planner. What you're seeing here is basically is not just literally, it's not an overnight creation. I want to just kind of go through the process, okay? So we started with, like what you were saying, two almost like facade building and just kind of come together. One of the biggest concern from the urban planner was basically how to break up the massing, because as you know, a 94 unit, it's a massive project, plus, it's a wraparound. So what you're seeing here is basically, it's almost like an individual townhouse being articulated into basically a little segment. And through that segment, it's articulated through material, number one. It's also articulated through recess and also popping out. And also the window treatment not only has different depth. Additionally, we originally had these two corners actually taken up as a residential, if I can go to, as a residential unit. Now these are free up as actually more of a amenity for the apartment complex. This used to be a unit itself, and now that has actually become a fitness and gym. We figure these two corners, again, is going to improve the public realm of basically Harbor, and especially Fifth. It's actually pretty, around this section is pretty, I would say, generate a lot of traffic. So in all, I really feel that truly, I believe this project will actually revitalize the neighborhood. So I believe this is a great product. I really disagree with what you said. This is just another version of, because the material is selected, if we actually have developer here, if we don't really care about this project, I think we could have just select a lot more simple palette, but it's a refined material where you're going to have wood that goes well with metal and goes well with smooth plaster. So I really, again, I think this is something that's going to be been craving for. I mean, it's been, the site has been vacant. I think this is something that City of Santa Ana really deserves this project. Thank you.
Thank you. You have any questions of the commissioner, sir?
Just to address it, excuse me, it's like what I was talking with the staff planner when she was up here. It's not that I'm concerned about the materials that you're putting up there. The materials are fine. What you've done with the window treatments and all that, if you've been paying attention, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the corner space and how it just presents itself. It looks like just form. Just picture two inanimate objects coming together. I'm not talking whether the object has chrome on it, this one has blue or green paint. Don't care. What I'm saying is as they come together, it just looks very unceremonial. It looks very bland. For a public space, all there is just one tree and some, chairs and benches and tables out there. So I'm just saying I would like to see more to it. I will compliment you. I appreciate the clock up there. I think clocks are great for public spaces.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's only going to be southbound travelers on Harbor that'll see that clock. Nobody coming the other direction. But I was hoping to see something a little more creative with that corner. Is that my concern? As far as the materials, I think, first of all, the city deserves these materials and more, and so I appreciate you incorporating them into the project. Again, to be very clear and simple, it wasn't a critique on your window treatments, your facades. Harbor, good. Fifth Street, we're good. It's the corner that I was a little more concerned with.
Don't you think that this corner here, I mean, imagine if this is going to be a great coffee shop. I mean, this is going to be a great corner people actually sit down and enjoy the outdoor space.
I mean, I don't want to put this expense on you, but I honestly was thinking more of like a water feature or something that was a little more popping, something that pizzazz. I know developers shy away at the idea of a water feature, and that's why I'm not recommending it as this thing, but I was hoping there'd be a little more creative landscaping, something to it. We've had a couple of projects come through here going more east of here along First and kind of in that general vicinity that have done a little more creativity in that arena. So that's where my concern was. I appreciate what my colleagues have done as far as addressing the other concerns as far as security and whatnot, but I'm more fixated on this corner at the moment.
Okay. I think over the year we have been shut down by other city proposed water features just because of, unfortunately, the water conservation. So this year, what we try to explain to the design committee, this white wall here, we're leaving as a blank canvas, but there's going to be a clock. We had been telling the design subcommittee, this is going to be literally our mural that is going to be going through a public art committee, enlisting a local artist to actually put up a really, really nice art mural that is going to be integrated into the clock itself. So I think the plaza itself, it has something already, and the next step is actually get some local artists involved and make this even a better plaza. So,
Commissioner Contreras.
I just wanted to say thank you for coming again, and thank you for going to the Review and Design Committee. I really think that, it's different, it's modern, it's going to, it looks like something maybe we can run into Santa Monica, Pasadena. It's going to be an amazing improvement for that corner. I don't know if, I think it's beautiful as is, but more trees, I don't know. I'd rather have more space for people to sit than to have more trees, because I really like the concept that we talked about, that open area, open space. If you do get a good chain coffee shop there, it's going to be alive and well. And we had talked about entertainment and different things like that. And I really think the concept of pulling in community and art and displaying it is a great feature. And maybe it'll change the coloring there once it's up there. It's a pretty large canvas.
But once again, thank you for your patience and thank you for your interest in bringing this to our city.
Thank you.
Commissioner Eldred?
One of the things that you mentioned was massing, and I'm always concerned about that. And I think you did a very good job of articulating the facade to kind of break that up. I don't have the same concerns about about that corner. I actually think if it ends up looking something close to that, I know the drawings got great lighting and all that, but I think it's an interesting project, and to me, I'm fine with it the way that it is. I think the reason why I asked about the change from the last meeting is I wasn't at the last meeting, so I just wanted to see if anything, just in the site plan was different. It wasn't a do or die, it was just I wanted to see. And so I thought what you've done with this project is nice. It's a pretty project, and I appreciate the work that you've done and the materials that you've used.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
If there's no questions, I just want to say thank you, staff and commissioner, and for seeing this project, and we hope to bring a good project to Santa Ana. Thank you.
Madam Secretary, have we received any written communications?
We have not.
Thank you. Is there a member of the public who would like to comment on this item? Okay, seeing none. I would like to bring it back to the commission for motion. I'll go with Commissioner Alderete first, then I'll get you, Phil, afterwards.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve site plan review number 2017-02 to allow the construction of the mixed-use development located at 421 North Harbor Boulevard, noting the condition number 6 in the conditions of approval for the site, the security.
Madam Chair, I'd like to ask the maker of the motion if I could add one slight change, and that would be, because I really appreciate what the applicant talked about as far as having a mural on that blank wall. I think that could really help that corner, and if it's a local artist, I would ask the maker of the motion if we could include somewhere in condition number 5 that it also include in the public art plan a mural on that corner portion with a local artist.
Is that the white?
Correct.
Yeah. That's I'll accept that
And
addition.
then with that, I'd second his motion.
Oh, okay, so can we clarify the wording on number 5? 'Cause right now it says a public art plan must be submitted to the planning division for review and approval prior to issuance of building permits.
That shall include a mural on the northern wall on the northwest corner of Fifth and or northwest corner of the project site, done by a local artist.
Are you talking about the wall or the canvas?
The white
The
portion.
wall where the clock was going to go.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so we have still a motion with the change to item number 5 to include the mural, and number 6 for the security plan, and the second from Commissioner Contreras-Leal.
Well,
Any others?
Phil seconded.
No.
I had seconded, but
Oh,
then
I'm
he
sorry.
said
Yes.
he would.
Okay. So
So I would support it then, I guess.
he just
Colin.
wanted his comment taken to be
Consideration.
considered
Thank
by
you.
the maker of the motion.
Yeah.
But right after he asked for the amendment, he said, and I'll second it.
She had already seconded.
But she
before-
apparently already seconded.
Before that happened. Okay. Any other comments? Does anybody want, before we take the vote? Commissioner Mendoza?
Yes, I just also want to thank the applicants for being here. As you probably remember, I would have voted on it last time. I think it's wonderful. I also see one on Main and MacArthur. I'm not sure whether that was approved, but every time I drive by there, I think that facility is beautiful and it reminds me of what you're doing there on Fifth and Harbor. So thank you. And that's all I have.
I just want to say I'm looking forward to this project. I think, like I said at the last meeting, it's deeply needed in that area, and I think it's going to just transform that and be a great addition to the neighborhood. So with that, I have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, your motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much. We'll move on to item number 2. This is the time and place for the public hearing for a conditional use permit 2017-16 to renew the entitlements of an existing 60-foot high monopole major wireless communications facility for T-Mobile West LLC located at 3308 West Warner Avenue. Do any commissioners have anything they wish to disclose with regard to this item? Okay. Staff will now make a presentation.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Planning Commissioners. This is an application for conditional use permit number 2017-16 on behalf of the applicant T-Mobile West LLC to renew the existing entitlements of a monopole at 3308 West Warner Avenue. As mentioned, this is a renewal of an existing 60-foot high monopole that is currently stealth as a flagpole and was previously approved by the Planning Commission back in 2005. In addition to the renewal process, the applicant is proposing to remove and replace equipment associated to the wireless facility. And this does require a new CUP. As you know, that our current CUP process is only valid for 5 years, and we've extended them to 10 years. So this current facility is already at its 10 year. This is why they're here on behalf of you today. Currently, the facility is kind of located, tucked away at the southwest corner of the property, and it's primarily surrounded by land, industrial uses and this railroad spur to the west of the property. So it's kind of somewhat tucked away, and it's not very visible from Warner Avenue. This is the site plan of the current location. Again, the facility is located at the southwest corner of the property. And this is just a zoomed-in version of the site plan. As you can see, you have the equipment shelter as well as an existing storage area that kind of blocks the visibility of the actual monopole, and then you have the monopole kind of behind that. And then just to go, you can see some of the ROUs are the equipment area that's going to be replaced, and they are actually replacing 3 antennas at the monopole area. This is a site photo. And it's kind of somewhat tucked away. Some people say it resembles a flagpole and somewhat resembles a light standard as well. But it's not your typical monopalm or monopine. As previously stated, it does require a conditional use permit to renew the facility for another 10 years. As part of the application, the applicant is going to be doing some site improvements, and that includes adding additional landscape to an existing planter that kind of it's adjacent to the primary building, and that's just trying to revegetate that area and give it some more light. They're actually restriping and reslurring the parking lot. There is some cracks in the area, so they're going to be filling that in. And they are going to be painting the wireless communication facility. There was some tagging along the railroad track lines that they're going to be repainting to address those issues. And as proposed, the facility will comply with the Santa Ana Municipal Code as well as our wireless communication facility regulations. And that concludes my presentation. We are asking that the Planning Commission approve conditional use permit number 2017-16 as conditioned. And I'll be free to answer any of your questions.
Thank you. Any questions, staff? Commissioner Contreras?
So I see that they're going to be doing some landscaping,
Correct.
but it looks by the pictures that landscaping's been ignored and it's deteriorated.
Correct.
So is this only a one-time upkeep, or are they going to continue to upkeep?
So the site photo basically right now, that's basically the railroad tracks. They're not liable to maintaining that area since it's open space area and it is public property. But what I'm referring to here, you could barely see it on this description. There is a landscape planter that's adjacent to the front of the building. Most of that landscape has kind of died over the years, and they are going to re-landscape that area.
Okay, but are they going to maintain it?
Correct. Our current code requires that these facilities be maintained. And if they don't maintain it, then obviously it's a code enforcement issue.
Okay, but it looks like it hasn't been maintained. So what's going to be different?
They're going to add additional vegetation. So we're going to go out there and do an inspection prior to us releasing this conditional use permit. If an applicant fails to maintain the premises, as I mentioned, it's a code enforcement violation. So code enforcement has to go out there and actually give a citation to the property owner for that.
Is that written in the...
That's our standard municipal code requirements, that the landscape shall be maintained. That's a responsibility of every owner in the city. If they do it or don't, I mean, that's kind of up to them. But then again, we do have code enforcement that goes out there and verifies that these properties are maintained.
You could see why I was asking.
No. Right, we are conditioning them to re-landscape.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks. Commissioner, don't leave so far faster. Commissioner Mendoza.
I haven't seen this in other requests, so I wanted to know what are the current parking centers when it comes to these wireless facilities?
Wireless facilities, I believe, are conditioned through the planning manager, and usually we do condition to have one stall. Yeah, but this site has abundant parking, so we didn't ask for that.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to comment on this item?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Alexis Hadley. I'm here representing T-Mobile tonight. Greatly appreciate you letting me speak, and I appreciate Mr. Guevara and all of his help in getting this site moved forward. We did meet with planning staff out on the site and also met with the landlord for the site. As staff has already mentioned, T-Mobile is proposing to upgrade its technology at the site, so it is an existing site. And we are just proposing to modify it, which includes the extension of the CUP, the renewal of the CUP. So as we met with the landlord and planning staff on site, it was mentioned that they would like us to install some additional landscaping. The owner of the property would strongly prefer that we not rip up his parking lot and install landscaping towards the back. Plus, it would not really be visible from Warner Avenue, and so our compromise was to install the landscaping along the frontage of the building. It will also be worked out in the lease agreement that the landlord will help us with the maintenance of that. We will be installing an irrigation system, and when T-Mobile goes out to check on the site and make sure that all the equipment is working, they will also be looking at the landscaping to make sure that it is being maintained. I don't have any additional information to add to what Mr. Guevara already mentioned, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Any questions of the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Have we received any written communications on this item?
We have not.
Thank you. Okay, we will now open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, we're going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for a motion and a vote. Do I have a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approve conditional use permit number 2017-16 to allow continued use of a 60-foot high wireless communication facility, which T-Mobile was located at 3308 West Warner Avenue, SmartLink LLC.
Have a second?
Second.
A motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to move on now to the work study calendar. The first item on the work study calendar is Neighborhood Improvement Program update.
As an introduction to this item, we are going to be, our planning division has 5 programs within it, and some of them you may be aware of, and some of them maybe not so much aware of. But tonight you're going to have the first presentation from one of our sections, and this is the Neighborhood Initiatives section. I'm sure many of you know Scott Kuttner and Margarita Macedonia. They've been very active in Santa Ana, but they've also been in many other departments, and so. But now they've been in the planning division of planning and the Planning and Building Agency for right before I came. So I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks. It was really short. And so we've both been here for about a year and 6 months. So please welcome them tonight. They're going to explain to you what their program is, how it works, and how you and the city can be more involved. So, welcome.
Madam Chairwoman and members of the Commission, we welcome the opportunity to share with you additional information about our program. Margarita and I moved over to the Planning Division about 18 months ago because there was an interest in trying to enhance the community planning capabilities of the Planning and Building Agency. As you know, there's a current planning section, there's an advanced planning section, and we are considered the community planning section, essentially. So the idea is to be able to build upon a lot of the excellent work that the planners have been doing and enhance their ability to work more collaboratively with the community with respect to development projects. We brought our entire portfolio of projects with us over to the Planning and Building Agency. We brought our vehicle with us, our computers, we brought everything, basically. We came over, and it's been a great experience for us. We've learned a lot through the process, and we feel that we've contributed a lot to the Planning Division as well. And so we have a brief presentation we wanted to walk through with you guys, as well as answer any questions that you have. We'll start off with our statement of values and principles, which I'm sure you're very familiar with because we've worked with each of you in the past. In brief, we're very solution-oriented. We're very, very interested in working with residents, community-based organizations, business owners, to the extent that they find themselves in a set of circumstances where there isn't a path that's apparent to them in order to bring about an improved outcome in some matter that's before the city or in some matter that the city has some sort of jurisdiction in. And so we all know that the city has asphalt to fix potholes, and we're able to get cats out of trees and things like that. But many of the problems that we encounter on a neighborhood level involve very deeply entrenched issues that require improved coordination and collaboration. And so that's sort of a role that we have and a responsibility that we have. There are three major areas that our program focuses on. And Margarita and I will split up that sort of those parts of the presentations. But in brief, we work with residents in their neighborhood associations. That's one area. Secondarily, we provide leadership for teams comprised of management level staff from different agencies so that the city can actually be more responsive to the issues and problems that are being presented. And then third, we work to improve the coordination and collaboration between the hundreds of community serving organizations in Santa Ana. And the sort of organizations we're talking about are recognized neighborhood associations, our 100 homeowner associations in Santa Ana, our over 100 faith-based congregations in Santa Ana, over 50 parent groups at schools, a couple hundred nonprofit community-based organizations, businesses that have an interest in civic engagement, our service clubs. We're very, very fortunate in Santa Ana that we have a history of hundreds of organizations having an interest in improving the community. Our challenge in lots of ways is to be proactive and creative in figuring out ways for those organizations to come into alignment with each other, so that they're able to coordinate and collaborate more frequently. I mean, I think that's one of our bigger challenges, for sure. And so with that, Margarita, do you want to talk a little bit about the neighborhood associations?
Yeah, so our program has been around for nearly 30 years. It's a significant investment that the city has provided in community engagement. So we have 64 recognized neighborhood associations, and these are neighborhood associations that establish their own boundaries. They just went through a process to get recognized by the city. But keep in mind, we also have other areas that are not represented. We have mobile home parks, we have multifamily housing that are not necessarily part, of a recognized neighborhood association, but we work with everyone. And so part of our component in engaging with resident leaders is to also work with the leadership of the recognized neighborhood associations. And we've seen many of you at some of these events. It's the body is called the Communication Linkage Forum, ComLink for short, and they've been around for nearly 30 years also. And so part of that is they represent the public policy arm of the neighborhood associations. What kind of priorities, how do they want to engage in finding solution-oriented, approaches for resolving some of these deeply entrenched issues? A current one, which you're familiar with, has to do with lunch trucks, for example, or graffiti, some of the quality of life priorities for the neighborhood. So that's how we engage with ComLink. And next week, actually, ComLink will be having their awards recognition night. So part of your material at the very end includes the list of neighborhood heroes who will be recognized at the event. And they also include recognizing homeowners who maintain their property for the Most Beautiful Yard contest. That's another recognition program that is celebrated at the ComLink Awards Night. And so that will be taking place next Thursday, June the 22nd, at Bowers Museum, inside the venue, the Charles Lee Court there, and it starts at 6:30 and it'll end at 8:30. And if you are available, you are welcome to attend. We typically get nearly like 180 to 200 people at that event.
Included in your packet is one of our maps, which you've seen, which sort of identifies the parts of town that Margarita and I work in. In addition to that, not to get overly academic with you guys, but we think it's really helpful to remind ourselves how heavily invested the city has been in this program over the last 3 decades. And so because of that, we really feel an obligation to identify some of the theoretical underpinnings, why it is we do what we do, how it is we do what we do, and how we anticipate we can be more successful by focusing on different priorities and underlying conditions. And so for that reason, we put together this assessment framework, which is part of your packet, which is really a throughput model in lots of ways. What we do is we think about neighborhoods first off, and we think, what is the energy that drives a neighborhood association forward? It's a voluntary block group. People have full lives, they have families, they have work. What is it that motivates someone to go to a neighborhood meeting and to get engaged in their neighborhood? And we find that typically what motivates them is that they either have a concern about something that's happening in their neighborhood, or they want to be doing something very proactive and positive in their neighborhood. They want to do a health fair. They want to do a home tour in their neighborhood. They want to sponsor a job fair, job training program for kids. Or they're concerned about speeding traffic through their neighborhood. They're concerned that the trees aren't trimmed. Whatever it is, there's something that brings people to the table initially. And so we recognize that. Our challenge, of course, as a program is to identify ways to build capacity within that neighborhood so that the association moves beyond simply being reactive and becomes a proactive, long-standing member of the community that's able to participate in a wide variety of activities. So we know what the input is, and then of course we know what the output is. The neighborhood association accomplishes something, whatever that may be, because in lots of ways when people go to neighborhood meetings, many times they want to feel like they're part of an effort that's having an impact. And so what we find through our research, what separates successful neighborhood associations from unsuccessful ones is organizational capacity, essentially, the throughput, the items that are included in the center of your chart here, essentially. And so for that reason, our program really focuses on leadership training and capacity building, helping our neighborhood leaders become more adept at building the capacity of their voluntary block group. We know that people arrive in positions of leadership in their neighborhood through a variety of paths. Some of them are better prepared than others to be leaders in their neighborhood. Some of them have really good organizational skills but are not comfortable speaking in front of people. Other people are very charismatic but not very well organized. We're typically unconditional, really, in accepting people who step forward and are recognized as a leader in their neighborhood. And we work to kind of help them build their capabilities in lots of ways. And so that's kind of the frame sort of around that picture in lots of ways. And so for that reason, each year we sponsor leadership training for residents, as well as training programs for leaders of homeowner associations, apartment managers. It's a big focus of our work in Santa Ana for certain. We're going to move on to the second area because one of our staff reminded me that the Cavaliers and the Warriors are playing tonight, Vince? Is that right? So we promised not to make the presentation too lengthy. So in any event, the second area we focus on, we call interagency teams, and it involves improving the responsiveness of the city to problems and issues that are going on. And so we have what we call neighborhood initiative areas that we've designated. And these are neighborhoods you're probably very familiar with. They're typically very troubled neighborhoods where there's been significant disinvestment or decline. There may be a civil gang injunction in the neighborhood as an example. And so we work in those neighborhoods to try and pull together resources from a variety of organizations, whether they be governmental, non-governmental, to have a much greater impact and to be able to sustain improvements in those neighborhoods. So the neighborhoods we focus on typically are
Townsend and Raitt, Cedar Evergreen, the Willard neighborhood are some of the neighborhood initiative areas that we're working with managers from other city departments, staff from other elected officials, other municipal offices, just to find ways to better coordinate and invest. We know that every department is limited with budget, but at the very least, there's an interest in, putting in some more resources and just working more collaboratively just to try to improve the quality of life in some of these dense areas.
And so we wanted to share three examples of ways that we work proactively in this area. With regard to resources, we have cultivated a relationship with the Orange County Community Foundation so that they are now willing to consider requests for program-related investment, essentially through the foundation, to help provide the financial support that's necessary for a troubled HOA, for instance, to move ahead with the installation of a new security camera system, as an example. So there's new technology that's out there that's really enabling troubled multifamily properties to significantly improve their security and to really deter people from doing either violent or really antisocial things, because the information is really captured and provided to the police department, and we're able to be much more effective sort of on the enforcement side. But many of these troubled homeowner associations also have troubled financial statements and balance sheets. And so in order to assist them, we've actually had these discussions with the Community Foundation so that the foundation is able to provide 0% financing over a 3 or 4 year period, which sort of makes the difference in some of these cases of these associations being willing to even consider implementing an improvement such as this. Two other examples, you guys mentioned the railroad spur. We're actually in discussions currently with the Union Pacific Railroad. We had a kickoff session with them and a group of about 10 different community-based organizations in the Cornerstone Village area, focusing on the railroad crossing at McFadden Street, just east of Standard, near Kennedy School. And the representative from Union Pacific who came out for our meeting, in some cases, this was the first time someone had seen a representative of Union Pacific in decades, basically. They can be very, very well insulated at the railroad. And so we're very encouraged by the feedback that we've received from them. We feel like we've put a human face on what we're doing here in Santa Ana for the railroad. And we're encouraged that we're going to be able to make some headway on some of those things.
Yeah, and part of that railroad area would also cover parts of the Delhi neighborhood behind Adams Street, where there have been some homeless encampments. And knowing that the Union Pacific Railroad Company is very protective about their boundaries, and it requires a lot of coordination with our police department and their police to be able to help make that area a little bit safer.
And then the third example, very briefly, wanted to share is that within the last 6 months, there's been a renewed interest to try and focus on air quality issues surrounding elementary schools in the city, as an example. And so we're currently working with AQMD and the Orange County District Attorney's Office and the Orange County Healthcare Agency looking at air quality issues, airborne particulate issues in the vicinity of one of our elementary schools here in Santa Ana. Many of you have probably followed the example of Rainbow Technologies in Huntington Beach and some lawsuits that were filed involving air quality issues affecting an elementary school across the street from a transfer station. And so we actually consulted with the folks at the school district there in Huntington Beach, the community-based organizations in the area, and we're now working collaboratively with Santa Ana Unified, the Orange County District Attorney's Office, AQMD, and we'd be happy to kind of provide a briefing on that at some point in the future. But we're very encouraged. Again, it's sort of an example of an effort that's greatly needed that requires a fair amount of coordination and collaboration in order to.
And I did want to reference another early victory that we had in the Townsend Rate area. We found that a lot of the families there couldn't access their mail safely because there were a lot of guns, drugs hidden in these unrepaired or disrepaired mailboxes. And several years ago, we were able to pull together an effort working with the, at the time, Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez's office and the U.S. Postal Service office and the owners from each of the individual apartments. We're talking about close to 40 apartments in that area, apartment buildings. And so that took a lot of coordination when you really, at times, don't think about, oh, I get my mail safely, but it was a reality check for the city and all of the other partners at the table about trying to create a safer built environment for families there.
And then the third part of our program that I'll go over very briefly involves strengthening the connection between these hundreds of different neighborhood serving organizations. We call that our Resource Network Initiative. We've included a copy of our functional org chart in your packet, which gives you an idea of the depth and the breadth of things that we're working on in that particular area. Each year, we do host a networking, recognition, and award event called Celebrate Santa Ana. And the event is coming up the end of this month on Thursday, June 29th. We've included the postcard invitation in your packet, along with a list of the individuals and organizations that will be receiving community building awards at our event later this month. We encourage you to attend the event. We think it'll be worth your while. You'll make new contacts. This year, we're also introducing an exhibition kind of concept where we're going to be having groups sharing information that is not very widely known about new things that are going on in Santa Ana, so that people feel that they're actually getting some valuable takeaways essentially from the event, in addition to participating in the recognition event and the networking associated with it. So that concludes our presentation. I think that what we'd like to add is that Margarita and I both feel an incredible debt of gratitude, to the staff who worked on this program going back 35 years or more, that helped create the foundation and the infrastructure that has enabled the city to sort of keep moving in this direction, and for the city to be such a patient employer, for us to be working on this program, to bring about the kind of results that we're seeing is very heartening. And this is work that we do by choice. So neither one of us landed in these jobs just because we were looking for a paycheck or meaningful employment.
We're very humbled to be in the position that we are. And it's a lot of responsibility and not much authority, but in terms of responsibility for, those trusted channels and the community that you're engaging with, the city departments. It's interdisciplinary, and it has been very rewarding thus far.
Thank you. So we're available to answer any questions. Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Mendoza?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I do have some questions for you. Have you guys tried doing tele-townhouse? Like, I know we have a large community that isn't able to attend some of these meetings, and I know, and I was the office of Congressman Lorena Sanchez, there was a big percentage of people that cannot go to the meeting, so we found that sometimes tele-townhouse were successful. We had people join in, and just an idea out there for you guys to consider. But the question that I have is in regards to the Financial Stability Alliance. Do they do financial literacy, or what do they do?
So the Financial Stability Alliance is a partnership that we have with the United Way of Orange County and a host of organizations that provide service in those areas. Our major focus is around the federal earned income tax credit campaign. What we find is that that refundable tax credit is something that many households in Santa Ana are not familiar with. And so, we believe that the IRS is very conflicted in lots of ways, in that Congress expects them to get information out to taxpayers about the earned income tax credit, but at the same time the federal government is running a huge budget deficit, and so they're not going to give the credit away. And so the Internal Revenue Service really leaves it up to each individual community to break through and get information to people about the availability of this credit. And so by working with the United Way, we're able to increase the number of free income tax preparation sites. And we actually launch our outreach for the earned income tax credit in September and October of each year, even long before people get their W-2s. Because what we find is that people file their income taxes very, very early in Santa Ana, and if we were to launch our campaign sometime in January, we would have missed actually a large number of the filers. And so what we do is, we're not making this up, we actually go to the Fiestas
Patrias, yeah.
Because we find that the people who go to the Fiestas Patrias kind of fit the profile of people who maybe are a little bit more carefree and maybe not so much paying attention to their income tax filings. And so we try and get information to people in the fall with a checklist of eligibility so that they can take that with them to their preparer in January and ask about it to find out whether they're eligible and be able to pursue it on that level. So that's an example of a way. Why, Commissioner Mendoza, why do a special event around EITC and attract 200 or 300 people when we can go to Fiestas Patrias and there are thousands of people there, and we work the street, basically. We don't sit behind a table and wait for people to come up to us. We're actually out there engaging with people.
And sorry, if I can ask one more question. You mentioned 50 parent groups. I'm personally very involved with my kids' school. Which 50 groups are these? Are these all the PTAs? Or?
Yeah, these are the PTAs, the PTOs, the parent groups at the schools. And in my area, I work primarily with the Santa Ana Unified School District, but I know Scott has other districts, other school districts within his boundaries that he's also engaging with. Mm-hmm. They're all an asset. All the parent groups, every component is needed. So.
Any other questions? Commissioner Becerra?
Well, more of a comment. I want to thank you guys for what you do. I was working in the city of LA back in 2001 when they were going through the big process of incorporating neighborhood councils, and the allocation for the budget for each of those organizations was just enormous. And so what you guys have accomplished over the years on the budget that you have, is just extraordinary. So I just want to thank you guys for what you do, and I think that's one of the strong selling points of the city. I know in our general plan advisory group we talked about selling points. What are things that are strengths of the city? And I think our neighborhood associations are one of them. The fact that we have these identified areas that are organized and that they feel compelled enough to actually participate because of what you guys do to actually connect them to the different resources and different departments in the city. So just a simple thank you.
Thank you.
I also just wanted to thank you. I've worked with Scott closely when I was on the Washington Square Neighborhood Association board, and I can't say to both of you how much value you bring to the city and everything you do. And I know it's tireless work, and sometimes you may not get the appreciation, but just so you know that there's we're up here and we're rooting for you, and we appreciate everything you do every single day. So I know it's a lot of work. With that, I do have to leave, but I'm going to leave the rest of the agenda in capable hands of Vice Chair McLaughlin. So with that, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments for
Just thanks, Scott, for everything. And Margarita, thanks for what you're doing. Okay. We'll move on to staff comments. Candia?
I wanted to give you an update on our general plan. We are continuing to proceed with it. It was kind of interesting. We started developing policy sections, and one thing we found that it was a little too much, so we're focusing more we're focusing on individual issues as opposed to doing one, and we felt like that program worked out better for us. In addition, I'd like to recognize that we have some staff changes. The first one, Hassan came down and said goodbye to you today. His last official day in the office will be Thursday. And so we wish him well, and he's very excited about some new challenges. And I think we all felt like, all of our staff felt like we learned a lot from him and wish him well. And the other is one of our planners, Holly Sobolewski. She did work on some projects. Some of you may have remembered her. She worked on the line, but her main focus was historic preservation. And she will be retiring, and so she is also leaving our city staff. And we all wish her well. So. Anyway, that concludes my report out. And
thank you. We have one person in the audience that raised his hand. Richard, would you like to? Remember, it's Cleveland versus the Warriors.
No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
And the Yankees. So, no, come on up.
My name is Richard Garcia. Thank you for letting me speak. I'd like to say I've been a community leader for almost 25 years. I've been working with Margarita and Scott for that many years, and I'm sorry for the long meetings I kept you at some of these meetings, but they're doing a great job. So my congratulations to them for doing an excellent job, and I didn't even know they'd taken up this role. This was shocking for me tonight. So this is double duties for them, because they are out there until sometimes 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening. Then they got to come back in the morning and do the same thing. So I commend them for doing double duties. This is excellent on their part. So I definitely needed to comment on that. All right.
Thank you, Richard, for
All
your
right,
comments.
thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll move on to commissioners' comments. Commissioner Becerra.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Unfortunately, I wasn't here when Hassan came down, but I will say that he definitely will be missed, and so will Holly. I know Holly worked on quite a few downtown projects as well and did an excellent job, so I'll definitely miss her on those projects as well. I want to bring up the esports arena for my colleagues. I don't know if you're aware, but so you know, back in May of 2014, we approved CUPs for them to open as an indoor commercial recreational facility, and we gave them the ability to operate past midnight to 2 a.m. They were the first in, I think it was North America, to provide this sort of venue for gaming for our youth, and they received a lot of accolades in the press. They did an excellent job. And then recently, they received some negative press for potentially hosting an event that was political in nature and that some of our residents and business owners had expressed concerns about, for the potential for damage to the surrounding area and unfortunately potential violence. So the folks at the esports arena decided not to hold the event, and they communicated that to the folks that were proposing the event. But one of the ways that this could have all been avoided is had Esports Arena followed the rules that were placed upon them. So the CUP that we gave them was for an indoor commercial recreational facility. And in Santa Ana, we have to give them a banquet CUP in order for them to host private events. And so what I understood after reading an OC Weekly article was that they've hosted numerous events, and this is not just someone poking around and asking. Esports Arena communicated that to the OC Weekly that they were hosting numerous events and that they were using a third-party coordinator. So I'd asked staff to, just to confirm what I felt was the situation, and they had confirmed it, and they had also confirmed that they've reached out to Esports Arena in the past to confirm whether they would want to have a banquet CUP, and I believe from my understanding is they declined or they just weren't going to pursue it. Frankly, it troubles me because I know that there's a lot of concern out in the community that as new businesses come into the downtown, are we just giving them carte blanche to run rampant and do whatever they want? Once they get their foot in the door, they can do anything they want. And as this commission has talked about very actively over the past couple of months, we've had staff come in from code enforcement. We've talked with our planning staff about what we could or should do to really kind of keep everybody operating the same way, because it's not fair when one business is following the rules and the other one's throwing caution to the wind. So with that, I would like to ask staff if you could please, before our next meeting, if you would reach out to them again, to the Esports Arena. You can say that either a commissioner or the planning commission asked whether they're going to apply for a banquet CUP, because just today looking at their website, there's options for folks to go on there and ask for estimates on whether they can host an event. And that's completely, clearly outside of the purview of their CUP.
The issue with the third-party vendor, as we explained, is you have to have a banquet. You can have a third-party vendor as long as it's open to the public. You only need the banquet permit if it's a closed event. So that's and the contact that staff had with them was that the events were open to the public and that they did comply with that open to the public or not open to the public criteria that triggers the banquet facility permit. Now, if you have evidence or or on the website that indicates that they are holding private events, I can forward those to code enforcement and have them investigate that.
Well, like I said, my request would be if you could ask them directly if they would like to apply for a banquet CUP, because I've seen with my own eyes that they provide opportunities for folks to host events there. And this event that had caused a little bit of a stir in the community was definitely a private event. If it was going to be a public event, I can only begin to imagine the catastrophe that would have come out of that event based on some of the reactions that I saw on social media and elsewhere. So I'm just asking if you
can forward that to me, if you can forward the information on the event to me, I will forward it to code enforcement and have them initiate an action on it.
I just want to know if they're going to apply. That's my question. I'm not asking you to initiate any time service.
Well, that will be the end result, is that they will have to comply. They will have to be cited for it, and that's their remedy, is for them to apply. And so we have already contacted them and reminded them of what they needed to do if they were going to hold events that were not open to the public, if they were renting out their facility as a banquet facility. We've explained to them what it is and how it's run. So they've already answered that question.
So it's clear then at this point they are not intending to apply for a banquet CUP.
It is at this point they are not intending to apply for a banquet CUP.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Contreras-Leal? Commissioner Alderetti?
No, nothing.
Commissioner Mendoza? Conditioner. Yeah, I don't know what that happened.
I am right, Commissioner.
Yeah. Are you really?
Yeah, I knew it.
I knew that. Yeah, there you go.
I just want to say happy Father's Day to those of you that are also, I look forward to attending the ethics training this Wednesday with the city at the Ross Annex. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no comments myself. At this point in time, the meeting is now adjourned. The next meeting will be held on June 26th at 5:30.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'd like to wish you the best. I'm sure next time we'll hear you have a new bundle of joy, so blessings to you and your family.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. This one.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's.
Thank you.
But that's Tony. But I mean,
I was like, well, I mean, it's that they don't agree is really all that needs to be communicated.
Validation.